Okay, so the transfer window is rumbling on at what you would call a slow pace for Newcastle United, but they are behind the scenes pushing away, trying to get something done. So, yeah, I guess to the outside, it looks like things are moving slow, but the reality is transfers are always going to take time, particularly when you are grappling them with PSR issues, which Newcastle United are, and there's no getting away from that. So, that's something that they're just going to have to live with for probably the next few windows, I would imagine, until they get to that point where they've got these big piles of profit that they can just dip into. What they are earning, they can spend, and at the moment, the PSR situation is they've got what you would say is limited funds. Doesn't mean they've got no funds; they've got limited funds. But there you are. Last night, Newcastle United, it emerged that they'd put the bid in for £45 million for Anthony Elanga at Nottingham Forest, a player who they tried to sign last window, last summer, didn't get him. At the weekend, if you remember, there was some talk of Harvey Barnes potentially being used as a player exchange plus a bit of cash. Nottingham Forest don't fancy that at all, and really it's going to have to be a cash deal for Elanga, and that's what was put on the table last night. It was rejected by Nottingham Forest. Newcastle haven't given up completely as we speak now on Wednesday morning, haven't given up completely on Elanga, may well go back with another bid. But, Forest aren't going to be easy sellers, and that's something that Newcastle have to live with. The next thing that, could happen is, they may well move on. They may well move on to other targets. There's a couple already been mentioned, ones that I've looked into and checked at the other end. Semenyo, Semenyo at Bournemouth, had a decent season last year. He can play left wing, he can play on the right, and Newcastle desperately want a right winger, of course. But, Semenyo is someone who could come in and give them that sort of versatility. But, the word coming from Bournemouth is they want £70 million for him. So that's going to be, if Elanga is going to end up being 60 million or whatever, or north of 60 million, Semenyo is not going to save you any money. It could end up costing more. And Newcastle, what they're looking for is value. So is Semenyo valued at £70 million? The question is, do Newcastle get the value at 70 million for a player like Semenyo? You look at Bournemouth's transfer history in 2023. He signed for Bournemouth for £10 million from Bristol City. Is he now worth 7 times that amount in the space of 2 years? That's the sort of thing that Newcastle they're being faced with. They're being quoted these astronomical fees. And yeah, for me, Semenyo would be a good signing at 70 million. I would say you could probably buy 2 players for that price. Elanga, £65 million potentially. Let's say Nottingham Forest hold out for that top fee, and is that a price worth paying for Elanga? We'll have to wait and see, because he's done all right at Forest. He's got assists and goals, but again, is this a true reflection of a player's value? And that's what Newcastle have got to weigh up. They obviously don't think it is, because they put a bid in for 45 million. They've tried to put a swap in there as well with Harvey Barnes. So this is what Newcastle are faced with. Kudus at West Ham is another player Newcastle have been linked with. You look at his situation, and West Ham signed him from Ajax. Newcastle were linked with him at the time. He opted to go to West Ham, and he's done all right down there, but last season scored 5 goals, 4 assists. These aren't blistering figures at the moment. He's a player that Newcastle could put any bid in for, but from July 1st to July 10th, what the word from West Ham is that he's got a release clause of £85 million. He's been linked with Tottenham, he's been linked with Arsenal. Is he worth £85 million? That is the question. A player, I suppose, any player is worth whatever someone is prepared to pay for him. And Newcastle, that's what they've got to weigh up. When they signed Alexander Isak, that deal was negotiations. There was bids gone in, there was bids rejected, and eventually they got Alexander Isak for 63 million because they felt that he was worth paying that price for. And whatever the asking price is, if a club is prepared to pay it, then they've got every chance of getting the best from that player. But that's where Newcastle are. It's a very tactical market at the minute, and I think realistically going into this one, Newcastle knew it was going to be tough. They knew they had money to spend. They've been linked with loads of players. As I said the last time I spoke on YouTube, I said that Newcastle were in a position where they're going to be linked with loads of players, but doesn't mean that there's nothing in it, because it could have been a player offered, it could have been a player that was scouted some months ago, it could have been a player they put an inquiry for. So you can't be dismissive of every single name. Some of them obviously you can, but agents at this time of year are putting names to clubs. They're giving clubs options. Eddie Howe is represented by the same agency as a lot of the players that they're linked with. So there's obviously going to be some, internal networking going on that way. Every manager has got his contacts. And for Newcastle, this sort of late June period was always going to be tricky. We think it's going to really heat up in July. And that's what Newcastle fans will be hoping for. Really, they just need to get 3 or 4 signings through the door. They need backup to what is probably you would call a vulnerable squad, because if there's injuries kick in on this, then it's going to be, could be a long season with Champions League football thrown in there, extra games, cup competitions. Newcastle were probably, you would say, ill-equipped last season. For me, I got a little bit of stick for it somewhere. I thought they scraped over the line in the last 4 games, 1 win in the last 4. They got in the Champions League on goal difference. That's not a criticism at all, because you finish where you deserve to finish over the course of 38 games. We know that. What I'm saying is that could have been a lot more comfortable. The reason it wasn't comfortable was because you had players like Lewis Hall with injuries. You had players like Joe Linton with injuries towards the end of the season. Different intervals of the season, you had Gordon had a couple of issues at one point. Isak missed a couple of games. There wasn't really sufficient backup to bring him in. Callum Wilson missed the first half of the season. The squad wasn't really equipped. So really, Eddie Howe done an amazing job as manager of the year stuff to get Newcastle in that Champions League position in the end. So for me, they want to be in that position where they don't want to be taking chances going in that last. That could have gone wrong. Aston Villa could have easily gone to Man United and won at Newcastle. A season's hard work could have just gone down the drain just because they weren't equipped to get over the line. And that for me is a concern, remains a concern. And I know there's a lot of fans agree with it, while some won't, but look, I think Newcastle got a great first 11, no doubt about that. It's a class team. It's one of the best teams I've watched. It's right up there. I mean, they've got a trophy to their name. They played in the Champions League twice in recent times. So it's fantastic, really, that they just need to add that little bit of quality to it now. And I think that's what Eddie Howe's wary of doing. Haven't been helped with the Paul Mitchell situation. Paul Mitchell obviously going to be leaving at the end of the week. It's going to be pretty interesting to see how that one unfolds. I haven't got any big concerns over it at all, but I think realistically, for me, Newcastle must strike while iron's hot in July and get these deals done, because you don't want to be going into August where it's even more desperate to get players, and clubs really are pushing prices up. They don't want to be in that position where they're backed into a corner. They need to get these deals done now. They've obviously got money to spend. They've demonstrated that with the bid for Elanga, and now they've just got to get the deal done. But thanks for watching. Let me know what you think below. Throw a question in. I'm doing another Q&A on Chronicle Live tomorrow. Went really well last week. Got loads of good questions, and spent a couple of hours on the website answering those. So get your question, throw it in on the bottom here. Would really welcome that. Any other comments as well, throw them my way. I'll have a look. And thanks for tuning in, and hopefully Newcastle can get a deal done pretty quickly.